Welcome to the Healthy Hustling Podcast. I am interviewing a good friend of mine from high school, and he happens to be a physician out in New York, working emergency medicine. This is Dr. Nate Panzlau. Nate, thanks for coming on today with us.
Sure, man. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. Also, real quick for anyone listening right now, so we have gotten Hyper Ice has decided to help out the community. So this is really cool thing that's happening. I reached out to them, and they're going to be helping out the local CrossFit boxes and giving back. So there is a code and a link here. So if you email me at Eric at fuelphysicaltherapy.com. I can give you that link for the 15% off discount. I can't put the link in social media or anything like that, so it has to be specifically sent to you, but you will get, with this link, a 15% discount on their products of the Hypervolt, the Hypervolt Plus, the Viper 2.0, the Sphere, the Mini Sphere, and the Venom series. So any of those products. And then they'll also give 15% to some of the local CrossFit boxes here in West Michigan. So it's a really cool thing that they're helping out with. And if you've used any of their products before, I've featured some of them. They've teamed up with Normatec, but that Hypervolt is top of the line percussion massage gun that really helps alleviate soreness, improve circulation, and improve mobility. And if you're a runner or a CrossFitter that's listening in, or anyone that's active, you know, if you've used this before, that this makes a huge difference in your recovery and your ability to just continue to work out at a high level. It takes away a significant amount of soreness. So just curious, Nate, have you seen any of those products before?
I'm not familiar with that. Yeah. We don't use those too much.
You don't use the massage guns in the ER?
Not a bunch.
Well, maybe they'll hook you guys up, and I don't know how that works with the whole PPE thing, but probably not sanitary to go taking that from one patient to the next right now.
No. We end up using more of our alcohol wipes, just trying to clean that thing.
Right. So yeah, let's so we're gonna get right into it. And so, like I'd mentioned before, Nate is working in the ER in Brooklyn, correct, Nate? Correct me if I'm wrong. Just tell me, what hospital are you in, and give us a little bit of your background. You went to school, did your undergrad at Michigan, and went to med school at Michigan State?
Yep. And then after med school, I came out to Brooklyn, where I did 3 years of residency. I graduated last July, and then I stayed at my same hospital, which is Brooklyn Methodist, where I'm currently doing an ultrasound fellowship, and then found myself, doing a COVID-19 fellowship as well, unintentionally. But yeah, it's been very interesting. I think one of the things that everyone kind of hears about is this sort of flattening the curve and really trying to get social distancing out there. And I think New York is kind of a great example of this. I think initially, you can kind of look to New York and see how we sort of failed in the beginning, that we really kind of got punched in the mouth. You hear about other hospitals where their staff are using garbage bags for personal protective equipment just because they don't have enough.
That's insane.
Everywhere where we're using our masks because we simply don't have enough. And the patients stormed in. Whenever we sort of talk about a mass kind of casualty incident, you always think about how you can free up your resources. And so you're always, clearing people out of the ER as fast as you can, getting patients that are admitted in the hospital kind of out as quick as you can to sort of, free up space for whatever comes through the door. So our hospital, I think, was pretty successful in that. But quickly we became pretty overwhelmed. Our ICU is a 20-bed ICU, which we split with medical patients and surgical patients. And now they have 100 beds that they're responsible for. a lot of our elective surgeries, elective procedures like getting a cardiac cath or doing a colonoscopy, those are all done so that we can use those rooms as ICU rooms.
Yeah.
So New York is a good example of kind of failing to put the social distancing measures in place, as quickly as we can. However, we're also a good example of how they have worked. So while our hospital is at capacity, we haven't hit that like overcapacity point yet. We haven't run out of ventilators. We aren't in some of the scariest situations that I never really signed up for, and something I never want to be in, that some of the doctors in Italy have to struggle with, is who gets placed on the vent, who doesn't. If the whole point of this social distancing and flattening the curve is not necessarily to prevent people from getting sick. I mean, hopefully it does, and that'd be great. But the idea behind it is that you don't overuse your hospital resources. Right. So if we end up having 1 million cases here in the States, it's much better for them to be spread out over 12 months as opposed to 1 month. Because if they all come in at one time, then we face that ventilator shortage and hospital bed shortage, and then we can't treat everyone to our best ability. So,
like you're saying, like you're having to deal with, I mean, if there's a ventilator shortage, which was a real concern there, if we're looking back even a month ago, we're looking at, we don't have enough ventilators for this thing. And then you're faced with what Italy is doing, where you're choosing, well, this person's 80 and more likely to die, and here's their percentage chance of living, versus here's maybe someone who's a little younger and here's their percentage chance of living with a ventilator. And now you're having to really flip a coin, and you're definitely going to have a lot more deaths that way for sure.
Right. And so fortunately we haven't been in that situation. And one of the residents at our hospital has kind of compiled this Excel spreadsheet, which shows how many patients we have admitted for COVID each day, how many get intubated, how many die, and how many are discharged. And as of last week, we sort of hit our peak, where every day we're admitting between 40 to 50 patients for COVID, and every day 12, 13 people were passing away. The last 2 days, our admissions have gone down to the 20s, and our deaths have gone down to like 5 or 6. So, hopefully we're starting, to kind of come down, and that, hopefully we won't hit that surge where, we have run out of our resources. But the important thing to do to kind of keep that in place and to prevent us from getting to that scary situation is to continue social distancing. Now, how long this is going to go on for is a very difficult question to answer. I know there's definitely a lot of economic pressures out there. The unemployment is through the roof, and a lot of people are struggling right now. But it's a very difficult situation. Most people believe that about 80% of the population has to have an immunity to it before we can sort of be in the clear. And what that means is either you've gotten the disease and have recovered from it, and now you have antibodies to fight it, or we have a vaccine and we can vaccinate people. So
do you think that herd immunity will come first before the vaccine, or is it that's pretty unlikely and we're going to have to keep some sort of measures until we get this vaccine, and then ideally there's a herd immunity as well? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I know some of the articles I've looked at, there's been about 300 vaccines that are currently in development now, 3 of which are in phase 3 clinical trials. There's kind of 4 phases to the clinical trials. So, I think most people believe we're still about 9-10 months away before we have a vaccine. And with our social distancing, we're really slowing the spread. So I don't know, really it's kind of hard to say which will come first. in an ideal world, you'd kind of want the vaccine first, because that way you can, people who are higher risk, like, over 65, have heart problems, have lung problems like COPD. Obesity has been one of the really emerging factors of a poor prognosis.
So some things that they saw too that I thought was pretty interesting that's come out is like smokers, obesity is, you're more at risk for being obese than if you are a smoker with this thing. So pretty wild there. Are you seeing the kind of the same things in regards to that?
Yeah. I mean, in my experience, again, this is purely anecdotal, so not the highest quality evidence, but in my experience, a lot of the more obese patients are having a more difficult time. And interestingly, the asthmatics seem to be doing okay. And just, the patients I've seen, a lot of them will come in, they'll say they feel a little bit short of breath, but they don't have the typical wheezing that you would expect. And most of them end up doing okay. But yeah.
Cool. No, that's some really good info. So, have you looked at they just came out with like this three-phase rollout that I think it was Dr. Birx was in charge of, nationally. Where do you think, like New York, where you guys are at, do you think you'll be back to opening up restaurants and that kind of thing anytime soon, or how long do you think that that's going to take?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the 3-phase rollout. I haven't come across that yet. But I do know here in New York, Cuomo has extended the lockdown to May 15th, where previously it was like April 30th. So we've added another 2 weeks. Again, it's one of those things that's just really difficult to say for sure. I mean, the biggest concern obviously is that you open it up too early and then we get another surge and we're kind of right back where we are. And then all of the sort of economic disparities that people have been under would all be for in vain.
Right.
And then it may set us back. If we keep it up, we may not have to be, in this situation as long as if we open it up, have another surge, and then have to go back on lockdown. So, I'd like to be able to say we could look at some of the other countries like China, but some of the data and stuff is hard to look at, and they also have different measures. So I know there's some reports coming out that China, after about a month of this, kind of opened things back up and are doing okay, but
Yeah.
They put in different sort of measures and were a little bit more strict, and and
Yeah.
again,
And I think too, like a lot of people, you got to be cautious with those numbers, even that are coming from China. I think I just saw in an article that they just reported 50% more deaths than what they had been reporting before. So I think, you look at that, we look at like what's going on in Italy and in Europe, obviously taking this by region by region, following what's going on in New York, since you guys are really at the epicenter of this whole thing, and really taking that data and letting our physicians and our researchers especially make the calls here on what's going to be the best and the safest call, and not letting, there's so much garbage out there for sure. It's great that we have the social media to get information so quickly, but at the same time, I think we're seeing right now too, how dangerous it can be in terms of just and people that don't know what they're talking about, and they're going and spreading around misinformation.
Yeah.
I think that's something you got to make sure that we're keeping track of too, and we're getting our news all from the right sources.
Right. And I know Detroit has been hit, pretty hard as well, as New York. And I think they're probably going through a similar situation, but, people in Grand Rapids, from what I hear, it hasn't been as severe. So I know when you're sort of in a situation where it's not hitting you in the face, it's a little bit easier to kind of get frustrated with the measures and, maybe think things are a little bit overblown just because you're not in it. You're not experiencing the same things. And there's one of these, kind of classic things going around where they show that if, afterwards people were like, oh, everyone, kind of was a little too aggressive with these quarantine measures, then that just proves that, they were implemented correctly and that, harm was avoided. Whereas if you do it too late, everyone's going to kind of look back retrospectively and be like, hey, we should have done more. So if you're in one of those situations where you kind of feel like this is all for nothing and, these are too extreme, you're in a fortunate situation where, maybe this won't be as bad and, your loved ones maybe won't have to go through some of the difficult situations that others are. I mean, we have patients in the ICU right now who, when we feel like they're going to pass away, we hold up a phone and their loved ones can FaceTime with them. We still won't allow them in the hospital because it's such a high risk situation. And that's definitely something you don't want to have to go through yourself.
I can't even imagine. Like, that's just pretty mind blowing to me that, these people can't even say goodbye in person, and you're at the end of your life or, a loved one's life, and you can't even say goodbye in person, and you got to do it through a screen. And then with these like funerals and stuff, like these are all, I think, being delayed as well, right? Or the whole thing's just pretty messed up when it comes to that and the grieving process. And it sucks for sure. Like, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah. And even ours in most hospitals too, the morgues are overrun. So we have, refrigerated semi trucks outside of our hospital just to store, patients that have deceased until their family can, figure out what sort of end of life, preparations they want.
Wow. I didn't even realize that you've got semi trucks outside with all the bodies.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Well, that definitely puts things, I guess, into a whole nother, perspective and light and everything like that. But, ultimately, like, do you see this, us coming out on top with this thing? And, I think most people have a pretty positive outlook. What's your outlook with this thing?
It's hard to say. I think it's, I guess, cautiously optimistic. I mean, you look at the flu of 1917, 1918.
Yeah, Spanish flu.
Where it went away, in the summer, and then it came back with a vengeance the following fall. So I think it's it's very infectious. It's more infectious than the flu. So I think it's something that's going to be around until we hit that 80% number, until we have a vaccine for it, or until 80% of the population has been infected with this and recovered from it. And the latter is much scarier, because if we get there by getting everyone in the country infected and then having people recover, then there'll be many more deaths. Where if we can slow the spread, buy us enough time to come up with an effective vaccine and can vaccinate people, many more lives will be saved. So it's hard to say. I don't necessarily think this is going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get a reprieve in the summer. But I think, the biggest thing we got to kind of take away from this is kind of to remember it and to, prepare for the next one, because there's going to be. I think, SARS, MERS, even swine flu, Americans weren't affected too much. We had a couple cases where we were able to sort of kind of quarantine and get around it without, shutting the country down. But this is really where this is, I think we're one of the hardest hit countries out there from this. Sure. I hope it's, a learning experience, and so that we make proper preparations for when it comes again.
And what I meant by like positive outlook, I don't necessarily mean like May 1st, things are right back to normal and peachy. I don't think anyone expects that, but I think, in the months in the next year, however long it takes, like ultimately we're going to overcome this thing, and it's going to take a group effort. And this thing isn't done. They're showing that it's going to go into June or July. And in terms of possibly hitting a peak out here, I know in Michigan, we're showing June, July is possibly going to be the peak. I'm not really sure. I just try to stay up to date and do what I can and stay safe and follow the social distancing guidelines that the experts really recommend. And I think your insight here has been just really beneficial to have, someone who's right there at the epicenter of this whole thing in New York. You've seen it more than anyone else, that's for sure, that I know of. I don't know of anyone else that I've talked to that's been as close to it as you have, especially since I'm over here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, Nate. Is there anything else that you really wanted to say or talk about with this thing?
I think one of the positives that I kind of have had, sort of personally from this is my faith in humanity has been, kind of restored. There are times where you hear about physician burnout, and the ER traditionally is a difficult place to work in. It's people on their worst day. It's where they go, and when people are having their worst day, they're not always the most friendly, and the staff can definitely go through a lot trying to treat these patients. But the community outreach has been amazing. I mean, the restaurants are providing pretty much 3 hot meals for us every day. There's the Ubers and other companies are sort of like donating so that healthcare workers can kind of get to and from work safely. There's hotels that are putting people up in rooms so that they don't have to expose their families. So just the way we've all sort of come together as just, people to sort of help each other out, support each other, and kind of get through this all together has really been amazing and kind of a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%. The amount you see too of just people reaching out and saying, are you okay? And trying to help one another, whether it's like business to business or the businesses helping the hospitals. I know I've seen quite a few different businesses that have completely switched like what they were doing. Like there's a specific example that I can think of right now. Guy I know, his name's Alex Benda, and he owns Oh Hello Promo. So a little bit of a shout out to him, but he's produced like, I don't even know how many thousands. It was like, it's over 35,000. It's a ridiculous amount of these ear savers that go for the masks for hospital workers, and they've distributed them throughout the United States and throughout the world. And they just kind of decided, one day, and I think they started doing this about a week or two ago, that, hey, we can make these ear savers and really make a difference. And they've just gotten, they put a post out there and on Facebook just asking for help with some resources and how to get these things out. And the amount of community that has come together to just get these simple, ear savers out has been awesome. And so that's just one example. And like you said, Uber and the hotels, it's great to see because there's so much negativity in the news and just finger pointing and blaming and politics. And you're right. If there's one thing, it's like we've gotten away from that for a minute to all come together to fight one common thing. And this thing doesn't discriminate between red states and blue states. It doesn't discriminate between skin color or anything like that. If you're human, it can definitely affect you, and it is affecting you in one way, shape, or form right now. I don't know a single person that's not affected, whether it's a family member that's gotten it, they've gotten it, or the economic impact. It's been insane. So Cool. Well, thanks so much, Nate. I really appreciate you coming on. And kind of like what we talked about off air, when you come out to Grand Rapids next, we got to catch up for sure. And hopefully the city will be opened up a little bit and we can go to Founders or something like that and grab a meal, grab a beer, and catch up some more.
Yeah, man, I'm excited about that beer scene out there. It's supposed to be one of the beer capitals of the country. So I'm excited to experience that at some point.
Yeah. It's definitely a good time when it's open. And so it'll all be open back up for sure. We just got to keep up the distancing for right now, overcome this, just like with what you were saying, and then we'll for sure be able to enjoy that. So I appreciate it, man. And thanks for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Take care, buddy.
This episode is brought to you by Hyperice. Hyperice is offering all listeners of the Healthy Hustling podcast with Dr. Eric Broadworth a 15% discount on their popular products, including the Hypervolt, Hypervolt Plus, Viper 2.0, Sphere, Minisphere, and Venom series. In addition to that, they're also going to be giving a 15% kickback from all purchased products using the code FUELPT15. That's FUELPT15, a 15% kickback to the local West Michigan CrossFit boxes. So be sure to purchase their products from Hyperice using the code FUELPT15 to get a 15% discount and also to support your local West Michigan CrossFit boxes. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to the Healthy Hustling podcast with Dr. Eric Broadworth and the Fuel Physical Therapy and Sports Performance YouTube page.